Does intimacy or vulnerability always have to be heavy? I asked this question in a recent authentic relating workshop, and I think it's such an interesting thing to reflect on. And it's definitely a trend that or a tendency that I see in authentic relating spaces, where when people are opening up and sharing in a way that does feel more vulnerable, more intimate, more tender, uh, they tend to share what can be described as quote unquote negative things and things that perhaps feel darker or heavier in life. And this makes a lot of sense to me because, just by calling them negative, there is this sort of nomenclature in our society that says some emotions are positive and therefore good and desirable, and some emotions are negative and therefore undesirable, and we should be trying not to have them. And even like this idea that like in speaking about a difficult experience or a negative emotion somehow like burdens the listener with the experience. And so I think what happens in these kind of workshops and spaces, these kind of conversations where it's okay to be honest and it's okay to speak to all of your experience. It makes a lot of sense then that the thing that people often want to talk about is something they've not been able to talk about. Yeah, these things that do feel more difficult and challenging and uncomfortable. So there's two things that I want to kind of offer here. One is that kind of vulnerability doesn't have to feel heavy. That somebody sharing a difficult experience doesn't have to mean it's a burden for me as a listener. In fact, it rarely is. Particularly, I notice when somebody is like really able to own their own experience and they're taking responsibility for it in some way, at least for their feelings in it, that I'm more than happy to be with them in that experience. It doesn't matter like how difficult it is. I feel touched and kind of honored to be sharing it with them. So yeah, I want to kind of like dispel this myth that sharing something difficult means that it's burdensome or heavy for the person listening. It can be, but not always. It doesn't have to be. And some of that depends on my capacity as a listener. It depends on how it's shared, all of the rest of it. And then the other kind of myth that I guess I want to dispel is that things that are lighthearted, or this person talking to me in this workshop was like, oh, it's superficial. But like lighthearted, funny, quote unquote positive, quite often in my workshops, I have people share, do a round of gratitude sharing. And I notice that can be just as bonding as people sharing the things that perhaps feel more taboo, more challenging or difficult in some way. And that intimacy and connection can come from that too. And in fact, even things that are vulnerable, I notice for me, yeah, I almost feel more comfortable sharing my mistakes, sharing my shortcomings. That kind of, yeah, it can be almost more tender for me to speak to the things that I'm proud of. Sometimes when I do these round robin games, I have people share something I like about myself. And that can be way harder for people than sharing, something I don't often tell people or something I feel shame around. It's really interesting. So yeah, I want to kind of like discern between that it's not necessarily the content of what somebody's sharing that makes it vulnerable, intimate, that builds connection and bonding. It's the fact that I'm opening up and I'm trusting somebody with that knowledge about me, whether it's light or heavy, positive or negative. There's a quality of tenderness, there's a quality of realness. I'm gonna like struggle to kind of describe it. I feel it when I'm sharing it. I feel it when somebody else is sharing it. And that for me is the place that really starts to build connection. Um, yeah, and I guess the final thing I would say on this is something I do say in trainings quite a lot is you're not the authentic relating police. So often I notice, particularly when people like start to get into this practice, it's so easy to judge other people for not doing it right. Oh, you're not welcoming everything. Oh, that person wasn't owning their experience. Um, oh, that's superficial. Like that's not relational. We kind of like, yeah, create these hierarchies and this sense of, well, this is better than that. And so we subtly damn the things that we don't think are good, and we kind of reify and put on a pedestal the things that we think are desirable in connection. And the irony is it like fundamentally goes against the first practice of authentic relating, which is to welcome everything. And that really does mean everything. It means really meeting somebody as they are and not needing them to change in order for you to have the experience that you want to have. Um, so yeah, I think, next time you're, judging yourself or judging somebody else for being heavy or superficial or not being authentic in the way that you define authenticity, um, it's like this, like for every finger that goes that way, there's like three coming back at me. I mean, it's a real invitation to kind of look at myself and like, oh, what are the stories that I'm telling myself about this? What are the assumptions that I have about this person? Um, yeah, is there a way for me to like meet this moment with them with more openness, like to really be available for connecting in the way they're showing up, and that yeah, light-hearted and funny can be just as important in building connections. I know that some of my fondest moments with friends are often those moments, as well as the times they've been there for me, sharing something difficult. Um, yeah, laughter is important too. Um, and yeah, authentic relating spaces can tend a little bit towards the serious. I know I can tend a little bit towards the serious. And so yeah, I also want to make space for uh humor and something lighthearted and superficial in what it means to be an authentic human being. Um, yeah, curious what you think. Do let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.